Episode 1 began with the atmosphere of a grand banquet in a luxury restaurant. The long dining hall glimmered under crystal chandeliers, and the air was filled with the aroma of gourmet dishes. At the center of the table sat Mr. Sato, a Japanese millionaire known for his sharp mind and quiet demeanor. He had been invited to discuss a potential business collaboration, but as the evening went on, it became clear that the biggest challenge was not the deal itself, it was communication. Mr. Sato spoke only Japanese, and the hosts had assumed they could manage with a few phrases picked up from the internet or through translation apps. However, as soon as he began speaking, everyone at the table exchanged confused glances. His words, though calm and respectful, sounded like an indecipherable code to them. The hosts tried awkwardly to laugh, nodding politely as if they understood, but the truth was evident. The waiters moved quietly in the background, pouring wine and refilling glasses, while the atmosphere at the main table grew tense. One of the businessmen attempted to use a phone translator, holding the device close to Mr. Sato, but the results were comically inaccurate. Instead of translating his thoughtful points about the importance of long-term trust, the app suggested nonsensical phrases about fish swimming in gardens and time being made of rice. The guests chuckled uncomfortably, while Mr. Sato remained dignified, though it was clear he felt slightly isolated. His wealth and reputation demanded respect, but without understanding his words, the evening was at risk of turning into a disaster. Meanwhile, a young waitress named Maria was helping her mother in the restaurant. Her mother worked in the kitchen, and Maria often assisted with small tasks like bringing extra utensils, clearing plates, or carrying trays of drinks. From the corner of the room, Maria noticed the unease at the grand table. She saw how Mr. Sato kept trying to explain something important, using his hands for emphasis, but no one responded meaningfully. She felt a pang of sympathy. To her, it seemed unfair that such a respected guest was not being heard. Maria had a secret many didn't know. Years earlier, she had studied Japanese. Her closest friend in school had been an exchange student from Tokyo, and their friendship had sparked her passion for the language. She practiced diligently for years, and though she never expected it to be useful in her small town, she maintained her fluency through books, shows, and online chats. Episode 2 unfolded as the tension grew heavier. One of the businessmen leaned back in frustration, whispering to another that the dinner was going nowhere. Plates of food sat untouched, the once celebratory mood now overshadowed by silence and confusion. Maria's mother, noticing the awkwardness, asked her daughter to take some fresh dishes to the table. As Maria approached, she could hear Mr. Sato speaking again, his tone filled with sincerity. To her surprise, she understood every word. He was not demanding or boasting, but rather sharing his philosophy, that true business partnerships should be built like family, with loyalty, patience, and honesty. Maria's heart raced. She realized that no one else in the room had caught his meaning. Gathering courage, Maria spoke softly in Japanese, addressing Mr. Sato directly. The table fell silent in shock as her words filled the air. Mr. Sato's eyes widened, then softened with genuine relief and gratitude. For the first time that evening, he smiled warmly. He responded in Japanese, asking her name and thanking her for listening. Maria translated his words carefully to the businessman, and suddenly the entire dynamic of the dinner changed. What had been an embarrassing, stagnant gathering transformed into a moment of connection. The hosts leaned forward eagerly, finally able to hear Mr. Sato's vision through Maria's interpretation. In that instant, the waitress's daughter became the most important person in the room. The millionaire, once isolated by language, now had a voice. The businessmen, once skeptical of the dinner's outcome, realized they had been gifted a bridge they never expected. And Maria, who had once thought her knowledge of Japanese would never matter in her quiet life, discovered that her skills could change the course of an evening, and perhaps the future of a major partnership. Episode 3 began with the atmosphere in the dining hall completely transformed. The tension that had hung heavy over the table just moments before dissolved into a wave of relief and excitement. Maria sat quietly, almost hesitant, but Mr. Sato kept glancing at her with an approving smile, as though he had finally found someone who could bridge the gap between two worlds. The businessmen, who earlier had been embarrassed by their failed attempts to communicate, leaned in eagerly as Maria translated. Each word she spoke brought clarity to Mr. Sato's ideas, and for the first time, his wisdom was fully revealed. He explained his philosophy in detail, speaking about how his success had never been built on quick deals or flashy promises. Instead, he told stories of patience, of waiting years to see projects mature, of valuing people over profits, and of treating employees like family. Maria translated carefully, her voice steady even though her heart raced. The men at the table were struck by the depth of his thoughts. They realized this was not just a potential investor but a man of principle who sought loyalty and long-term vision. The businessmen, who had been anxious about impressing him, suddenly understood that their task was not to dazzle but to prove their integrity. Maria's presence became the anchor of the evening. She sat between worlds, faithfully carrying words across the invisible divide. Mr. Sato began to speak more openly, no longer reserved or cautious. He even chuckled at moments, sharing small anecdotes from his travels in Europe and the lessons he had learned. Each time Maria translated, the table laughed, smiled, and nodded in unison. The energy shifted into something far warmer than business. It felt like friendship being born. For the first time in years, Maria's mother watched her daughter shine in front of powerful people, and pride welled up in her heart. Episode 4 opened with a test of trust. One of the senior businessmen presented their company's vision, asking Maria to translate it for Mr. Sato. She did so flawlessly, capturing not just the words but the passion behind them. Mr. Sato listened carefully, then asked probing questions in Japanese, questions that revealed his sharp mind. Maria conveyed these with precision, and the businessmen responded honestly. The exchange grew deeper and more meaningful with every round, and the gap that had seemed impossible to close at the start of the dinner was now gone. But the evening held a surprise. As Maria translated another one of Mr. Sato's questions, the room grew quiet. He had asked not about profits, not about numbers, but about character. "How do you treat your smallest employee?" he inquired. "How do you respond when no one is watching?" His words, when translated by Maria, carried a weight that struck everyone at the table. The businessmen paused, realizing they were being measured not just by their business plan but by their integrity as human beings. The man seated at the head of the table, once so confident in his presentation, admitted that they had made mistakes in the past but were working to build a culture of fairness and respect. Maria translated honestly, bracing herself for disapproval. Instead, Mr. Sato nodded slowly, a look of respect crossing his face. He valued honesty above perfection. The entire table realized that this man was searching for something deeper than contracts. He was searching for people he could trust. As the night progressed, Maria felt herself becoming more than just a translator. She was now a vital thread in the fabric of the evening, ensuring that understanding flowed both ways. For Mr. Sato, she was not just a waitress's daughter but a voice that allowed him to be heard and understood. For the businessmen, she was the unexpected savior who had turned a failing dinner into the start of a partnership. By the time dessert was served, laughter echoed through the room, and glasses were raised in toasts. Maria's hands trembled slightly as she lifted her own glass, overwhelmed by the thought that she, of all people, had played such a crucial role. What had started as just another shift in the restaurant had transformed into a life-changing moment. The evening had become a lesson in humility, patience, and the unexpected power of hidden talents. The millionaire had found his voice, the businessman had found a new path, and Maria had discovered that sometimes the smallest person in the room could carry the greatest influence. Episode 5 opened with the dinner reaching its most meaningful stage. The room, which had once been filled with confusion and awkward silences, now resonated with connection and genuine respect. Mr. Sato had spoken freely about his values and vision, and the businessmen had listened intently, responding with honesty and curiosity. Maria, though still nervous inside, carried each word across the language barrier with grace. Her translations were no longer hesitant but confident, capturing the essence of every phrase. For Mr. Sato, it felt as though his heart had finally been unlocked, and for the businessmen, it was as if a door had been opened into a world they could not have accessed otherwise. As the evening unfolded, Mr. Sato shifted the conversation to the future. He spoke about the importance of creating something lasting, something that would benefit not only those at the table but also the generations to come. He shared the story of how his grandfather had started with almost nothing, building a small workshop into a company through resilience and fairness. Maria translated with care, her voice steady but touched with emotion, as though she too was part of the journey he described. The businessmen were moved, realizing that this was not just about securing funds or signing papers, This was about building a legacy with someone who valued people above profit. At one point, Mr. Sato paused and turned directly to Maria. Speaking in Japanese, he thanked her deeply for being his voice that night. He explained that her role had gone beyond translation, she had brought understanding and respect to the table. Maria blushed as she translated his gratitude aloud, and the businessmen applauded warmly. It was a rare sight, a room full of powerful men showing admiration for a young waitress who had stepped into an unexpected role. Her mother, watching from the side, had tears in her eyes. She realized her daughter's hidden talent had not only changed the course of the evening but had also earned her recognition in a way neither of them could have imagined. Episode 6 began with a shift from business talk to something more personal. With the heavy discussions complete, the table relaxed. Plates were cleared, desserts arrived, and the wine glasses sparkled in the warm light. The businessmen shared stories of their own struggles, and Maria translated them, allowing Mr. Sato to laugh and nod in understanding. The once distant millionaire now felt like a friend, his sharp, intimidating aura softened into warmth. He even shared a few light-hearted jokes in Japanese, which Maria translated to the delight of the guests. The sound of laughter filled the dining hall, turning what had begun as a strained dinner into a celebration. As the night drew to a close, Mr. Sato made an announcement through Maria that surprised everyone. He declared his decision to move forward with the partnership, but with one condition: trust and integrity had to remain at the heart of everything. He said he was not investing in projects, he was investing in people. The businessmen, touched by his words, promised to honor that principle. Maria's voice carried those promises back to him, and the bond between both sides was sealed not with contracts, but with sincerity. Before leaving, Mr. Sato stood and bowed respectfully to Maria. He told her that she had changed the evening, and perhaps the future, by choosing to speak up. He encouraged her to continue her studies and use her gift, reminding her that languages connect worlds and open doors that few expect. Maria, overwhelmed, bowed in return, her cheeks flushed with pride. The businessmen stood as well, offering their gratitude, realizing that without her, the night would have ended in silence and failure. As Mr. Sato departed, escorted with the utmost respect, Maria and her mother stood together in quiet awe. What had begun as an ordinary work shift had turned into a turning point not just for the businessmen, but for Maria herself. She had discovered the power of her voice, the value of her hidden skill, and the truth that sometimes the smallest person in the room could carry the greatest responsibility. That night was not just about business, it was about connection, respect, and the unexpected ways destiny reveals itself at the simplest of dinners.